Hello, welcome to another Sonic Lab. Today we're looking at, we've got a sort of first look at the Modal Electronics Craft synthesizer. Here it is right here. It's actually quite a little chap. It's a sort of semi-DIY synthesizer you put together out of circuit boards that come sort of flat packed. We didn't get the kit, we just got it ready constructed, but we're told it's actually very simple and straightforward to put together, no soldering required. It's simply, quite simply, it's DSP powered virtual analog. I guess that's it. 2 oscillators, a low pass resonant filter, LFO that goes right up into audio rates. I think you heard that earlier. That's clockable. It's also got oscillator spread and detune for the second oscillator, so you can get these kind of chord type effects. It's also got a little sort of analog style delay, well, digital delay, I guess it would be. Let's take a look at the unit. It's powered by a mini USB, not a micro, unfortunately. That would have been nice, as that's a much more standard USB connector. I've got Blu-Tack on here because it slips around a little bit because it's such a lightweight thing. We're told the final one's going to come with some extra feet, so you could do that. So you just literally plug that in and that gives it just power, but it's also a class compliant USB MIDI interface. So it allows you to control and play the unit, because on the unit itself we've got these little 5 pads which are indeed preset scales, but they also allow you to do other things like change octaves at the scale of these pads, portamento, preset envelopes, and finally the volume. The whole heart of this thing is kind of geared around this little button here, the preset button. So you can see each of these 8 knobs has 2 parameters, and the top parameter is basically when you're in this mode, press it again, and those then become the bottom parameters. Up and down, pretty simple. It's also got 16 presets on board, rather unbelievably, as well as a little FM kind of thing. I'll show you a little bit about this. All the other functions are accessed kind of via various modes. It's actually quite a clever piece of programming because it's very, very simple to use. The main thing I should say is it actually sounds pretty good. I mean, it's much bigger sounding than one might expect for such a little thing. And obviously it is DSP, there's no analog, but it's got quite a lot of extra parameters under the hood, which you can access via an iOS editor, which hopefully I'll show you a little bit later. They've got someone coming over with a kind of beta version just so I can take a look. So we'll slot that in a little bit later on. So let's take a listen to the basic sound of this guy. Before I do, I'll just give you, I don't know if you can see here, it's a bit difficult for me to get the camera in actually because of the way that it's angled, but you can see the knobs are essentially just sort of surface mount with a knurled grip, a bit like kind of Volca style knob tops, but you can actually you could put your own knob caps on these, which might be a bit of fun. So let's start with oscillator 1, and how you change the waveform is depending on how far the mix knob is over, because we're in page 1, which is signified by the top blue LED. We've got sine wave, triangle, sawtooth, square, with pulse width. Yeah. Hey, guess what? It's got pulse width modulation. That'll keep you all you synth meme fans happy. To select oscillator 2 wave, we just move the mix knob right the way around, and then we can just dial in the waves. We've got sine, triangle, sawtooth, square, and also noise. So I just come back to triangle. The other thing that we can do is tune this oscillator over quite a wide range. And also the other thing that, so we can have an octave, an interval between the two. The other thing that we can do is we can dial in this spread parameter. So what that does is combine the 2 oscillators to create these kind of larger detune voices till you get quite extreme, and then it starts to combine to create these little sort of preset chords. So we've got quite a lot of, I mean, almost this sort of like polychord type voices. And that affects both oscillators at the same time. So actually, you know, it's quite a lot of intervals and just interesting basic oscillators. I mean, you know, okay, they're not analog oscillators. They're not going to kind of make you think, maybe I should get this instead of a dedicated analog mono. No. But for a unit this size, actually quite a lot of fun and quite a lot of sonic possibilities. If we just take a look, a real close-up look, you can see what's going on the front panel as well. We've also got this LFO, single LFO, which has got various waves. We've got sine waves in 2 phases, triangle wave in 2 phases, ramp up, ramp down, square wave through an inverse square wave. And this goes right into high audio rates. In terms of destinations, amplitude, frequency, cutoff, FM, mix between the 2 oscillators, and pulse width modulation, which you'll be pleased to hear. Let's just dial in some of that so you can have a listen. So I've got a little square wave here. And now I'm going to dial in, I've got it routed to pulse width modulation. Mess with the filter a bit. And take that right up into audio rate. Down quite slowly. I mean, you know, it's not the greatest analog sounding pulse width modulation, but goodness me, it does pulse width modulation. Who'd have thought it? So if we get some FM going on, I'm just going to dial this back to a sine wave. Then I go into page 2 and dial in the amount of FM. And this is now modulating oscillator 1 via the frequency of oscillator 2. So I'll turn the amount up full, come back, and now I can tune the second VCO to a frequency even into LFO range. That's the second VCO in a low frequency mode. So I've got the possibility for FM going on there. Add a bit of filter action too. Speaking of the filter, let's just take the FM down. Come back to a straight sawtooth wave. Low pass filter. Adding a bit of resonance. Does lose a lot of bottom end. I'll just change the octave of the keyboard, and what I do is by holding down the octave button, which is a preset, so pressing and holding and pressing this. Let's get it to there. Kind of a little bit driven sounding, taking the resonance right up. We lose a lot of bottom end, but we get that kind of quite nice. It sounds like kind of 2-pole because it doesn't go into full resonance. I don't know whether it is or not, but there you go. So you get that kind of sound. There is actually, using the iOS editor, this filter is the same kind of concept as you find in the 002, which is it's got a variable slope. So you can go from full low pass mode into kind of through band pass and up into high pass mode. So you get those extra modes. That's something you can access via the iOS editor, which hopefully will show up a little bit later on in this review. We've also got a little built-in distortion unit. So if I go into page 2 now and start adding the drive, get some quite extreme stuff going on, or just a little bit perhaps. And that really helps to sort of bring out the bottom end when you've got higher resonance settings. Let's turn that right up. You get that nice kind of quacky kind of sound, full resonance. And now if we turn the destination to the filter, come back and add a bit of and take this up into audio rates. Get some really sort of gnarly, gritty, distorted type of tones as well. Who knew? Right, finally, there's a little delay unit in here. In page 2, I turn up the mix. I've got the time and the feedback. It's a bit basic, not terribly long, but useful for getting a bit of a vibe going on any sounds. Obviously you can add effects later if you want, but you know, there it is, it's built in. It is quite basic though. Oh, as if by magic, we've also got the iPad, and the guys from Modal have brought over a copy of the iPad on their development system. This is the iPad editor, and it's actually very simple. It's got that sort of strong modal look, but it gives you access to a whole lot of different parameters. So if I just show you what I'm doing here, I'll hold a note down on this guy, bring this guy in, and then I can start to affect the filter. But the other thing, there's all these hidden parameters in here as well. So for instance, there's a morph on the filter, which means it's got the filter characteristics more like the 002, which allows you to kind of take it into high pass mode, which is actually pretty cool. Let's take the morph back down to cut off. We've also got the LFO. We can see just how fast this can go into audio rates. And this takes basically the root note and gives you kind of multiplication, so you get these kind of musical divisions. So they're always, you know, they always sound good. Additionally, we've got the ability to affect the envelopes. Now there's a filter envelope and an amplitude envelope. I'll just take that down, give it a bit of resonance, and then give it a bit of attack. Same with the amplitude envelope. So we've got access to all these additional parameters. I mean, this isn't finished, so I can't give you a full demo, but suffice to say that we have got the iOS app. I also understand there's going to be a OS X application for it as well. I've got a screenshot of that, which I'll throw in, and you can see what that looks like. Very similar kind of look to the modal feel. So all of those extra hidden parameters in this tiny little synth are accessible via the iPad. And I should say that this is all just running off the camera connection kit, powering the unit as well. So in terms of how it's working, there's really kind of no more complex setup than that. And I did notice here that it says Synth 1. Now there seems to be a lot of space all the way across here, so presumably we might be able to hook up more than one synth, or if there's any other stuff coming in the range, perhaps that will show up here, which would actually be pretty cool. But we don't know what they've got planned just yet. So that's the Modal Electronics Craft synth. As I say, this is a kind of, rushed look at the iPad editor. It's available for pre-order now, certainly in the UK, price $79.99. I guess that's probably going to make it maybe $99 in the US. I don't know about availability there. Certainly in the UK, you can pre-order it now, and it's got a delivery date of December the 14th. So it could be just in time for Christmas, if this is the sort of thing that you're after. And in terms of, just a sort of little stocking filler, or for the synth lover in your life, or perhaps you just think you deserve yourself a little toy, this could be just the thing. I should also point out that while this has got MIDI USB capability, it's class compliant, so you can plug it in. All of the knobs respond to and output MIDI CC control, so you could automate this via your DAW or via something like ModStep on the iPad, but it does mean that although we've got the stereo line out and the stereo headphone out, it would have been nice to see maybe another mini jack here for a MIDI input, because then you could run it from other hardware without the need for anything else in between. But I guess you can't have everything. As I did say, there are 16 presets in here as well, which you can store and recall. I mean, I would say sometimes it's a little bit funky to kind of, you get a bit confused with where you are in the preset button, but on the whole, it's actually quite straightforward to use. Anyway, that's the first look at the Modal Electronics Craft synth. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. I'll leave you with a few presets. So I've just got this little keyboard here going into Logic, and then that's coming out via class compliant into the Craft Synth. So I've got a couple of tracks and a beat that I put down with the Craft Synth. The beat is just coming straight out of Logic. It's a Ultra Beat preset. So if I just play this.